Oh, this seems pretty normal. I take that back. Yeah. I Can't Escape Darkness by Fancy Fish Games is a first-person dungeon crawler akin to the old Ultima games, or more recently, the Legend of Grimrock series. If you're unfamiliar with either of those, the basics are that you're in first person and you move throughout a randomly generated maze/dungeon thing one space at a time. You can rotate your view to the left and right 90 degrees at a time by pressing the respective buttons. Typically, these games have a focus on puzzle solving and fighting beasties. In Darkness, however, the focus is more on exploration and making you super uncomfortable. Here's a spoiler, it does the job really well. The original I Can't Escape was done as an experiment during a 1-month game jam, which was in turn inspired by a maze generator that the developer did on another project. After playing around with the generator for a bit, he had the idea to combine the random levels with the first-person perspective and some dripping Lovecraftian atmosphere and lore. And I mean, naturally, you combine that with some permadeath and you've got yourself a pretty intense mixture for a pretty creepy dungeon crawler. Each run through the dungeon begins outside on a path what seems to be miles out, with a view of the temple you've been searching for obstructed by thick dead vines. As you approach, the ground beneath you gives way and you find yourself in hidden catacombs that may or may not be connected to your destination. They probably are, but it honestly doesn't matter because you're gonna die down here. As you explore your newly found grave, text will appear on screen to give you small, sometimes cryptic bits of lore, in addition to giving you a goal and a simple hint or two about whatever layer of the dungeon you're on. It mainly just tells you to beware the darkness when you get deep enough, and at the last level it tells you to not do a thing, and if you do that thing that it tells you not to do, then GG, you ruin the world, yay! I think that this text is supposed to represent a voice that the player character is hearing in their head, and I actually like that it's text instead of voice. It leaves the voice itself up to the player's imaginations, and if it were an actual voice playing, it'd be jarring, it'd pull you out of the atmosphere. Truth be told, I wish that there were more world building in-game. You do find some notes left by former adventurers that seem to have been corpses for quite some time, and there's a pretty tragic story to the group that's fun to piece together, but there just isn't a whole lot of lore to actually get throughout the game. You'll end up picking up the same notes and the same text will appear on screen for each level of the dungeon. The gameplay itself is decent. It's not difficult, but movement and combat feel clunky and dated, likely due to the old school movement system. I was able to get used to it fairly quickly, but really, combat and fluid movement aren't the main focuses of the game. The real meat and potatoes lie in letting yourself get sucked into the atmosphere and spending time exploring each floor. The atmosphere in-game is honestly surprisingly thick, and even though the base mechanics are a bit dated, it's easy to get sucked right in thanks to the lighting, music, and sound effects. The music is suitably eerie, and your footsteps echo through the halls in a way that practically punctuates the silence. Heavy stone doors grind against their frames when they open, and every now and then you'll be treated to a random spooky noise, like a ghost whispering in some ancient language in your ear, or a scream off in the distance. On one of the floors, I even heard thundering footsteps, and I have no idea what on earth those were. I just know that I do not want them anywhere near me. As you advance through the dungeon, things get, well, strange. The walls get covered in flesh and veins, and then a floor later, the walls are flesh and veins. It's so very Lovecraftian that I feel like I'll run into some fish people or some other eldritch horrors like some kind of, yeah, that'll do it. It's unfortunate that there isn't more to I Can't Escape Darkness. What exists right now is an incredibly great base with plenty of replayability, but it's quite limited in scope. This is something that, hands down, just needs more content. A wider variety of dungeon environments, enemies, puzzles, and secrets would do wonders. It'd also benefit from longer runs and a higher difficulty, though you need to be careful to not just up the difficulty by raising the number of monsters that you run into, because the eeriness of the whole thing comes from the emptiness of the floors, and later on, the panic comes from how strange things are. One final note is that I wish the build-up to the meat walls and heart of the dungeon was longer and paced in a more clever way. If there were more floors before the heart, there'd be more time to explore and get creeped out by the fantastic atmosphere. You could drop hints and have more set pieces that tell you about the world, and it'd keep people coming back for more over and over. As it stands, I Can't Escape Darkness is a promising game that many could enjoy. It does unique things with the dungeon crawler formula, and it does atmosphere almost perfectly. You can pick it up for about $12 on Steam or the Humble Store. If you want to spend a few hours getting creeped out and falling down holes, then this is one to check out. That is it for this episode of Indie Bytes. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Be sure to send me any indie games you think I should check out either in the comments down below or on Twitter. My handle's @forkh. You can also shoot me an email. It's fork4h@gmail.com. I will see you next time. Bye!